Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the new turbulence settings in Microsoft Flight Simulator SU12 update. Now this is actually pretty cool because there's a lot of things that we've seen in the most recent builds that made turbulence a very interesting experience for our pilots, especially for folks who are operating in VR. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created myself a pretty straightforward little weather preset, and we're going to be experimenting with a couple of the different options here. Now keep in mind, turbulence is actually two different components inside of this. It's really multiple components, but for us, it's basically two. The first one is going to be what the current weather is. The second one is going to be what the turbulence setting under assistance is set to. Now, if you crank one of those up and not the other one, it could have an interesting impact on options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to climb up to 1,000 feet. Now, keep in mind, turbulence is generally going to be worse at lower altitudes, especially with lightweight aircraft like a Cessna 152, than it is going to be at the higher altitudes. So I'm going to go ahead and make my way in this direction. That being said, we have these lovely things called clear air turbulence for those of you who are so inclined to want to chunder. All right, let's go ahead and now pop my throttle back to about 75%, and we'll take a look. Let's look at our conditions here. So at the moment, we're sitting here, I'm taking a look at the mean ground level. We have a wind from 242, it's 5 knots, it's not gusting, it's not doing anything excessive. It is incredibly generic wind here, and if I just let go of my controls and just kind of like take a look at what it looks like, you can see we have a little bit of a climb. The nose is staying pretty steady. We have a little bit of a left turning tendency. Again, nothing too unusual as far as that goes. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and head back to that weather now, and we'll go ahead and apply a little tiny bit of gusting here. So we'll bring the speed up to about 10 knots, which is going to make a little bit of bumps for us. And we'll go ahead and create a gust. We'll be polite and keep it roughly out of the same direction here. And we'll bring it up to about, we'll call it 5 knot gust, which is pretty fair. Gust per minute, we'll keep it kind of average, nothing too crazy. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and let go of my controls, and you can see we're not getting bounced around that bad at all. It's actually pretty normal if you ask me. Now, when I fly in the real world, this is typical. It's usually not really that bad. I don't like to fly in bad days just because it gets very uncomfortable. So what we're going to do now is hit the escape key. We're going to hit assistance options. If you go down to piloting, you're going to notice there's a new option at the bottom for turbulence. Ooh, As you can see in our little description over here on the right-hand side, it says when you put this to realistic, it's simulated based on current altitude, weather, and environment. Medium or low, it actually settles it down a little bit. Now you'll have thermals. And keep in mind, there's some activities that limit this based on balance, which is no fun for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank it up to the realistic setting. By the way, there's a no off setting here. You'll probably know that. So I'll go to the go back. I'll press resume. And now we can see what it looks like. Now, as you probably recall, our turbulence a few moments ago was set to that lovely setting of low. And now that I'm just kind of sitting here, you can see the nose of the plane is definitely starting to wander around a little bit here. I'm noticing it's getting a little bit of a tendency, and I'm also getting the chop, that kind of chunk kind of a feel that you get on certain types of turbulence. But look at the aircraft from the outside. You can see without any assistance or kind of prompting or guiding here, you can see it's getting a little bit of bounce, which is, again, nothing excessive by any means. This is a very typical turbulence. In my mind, this is actually fairly authentic turbulence. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and crank this up to the extreme so you can see the impact that this has. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crank up my wind speed. We'll go up to 20 knots here. That's quick. I don't think I'd want to fly 152 at ground speeds of 20. We'll leave the gusts as they are, but what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of wind shear here and kind of bring it off to the side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and try to level this off again. It's tough with this airplane. Let's go right there. That looks pretty good. So much easier to level a plane off in the real world. And I'm just going to kind of hold it steady, let go of my controls, give it a couple taps here, a couple taps there. Looks pretty good, and you can see what the realistic setting looks like here. It is definitely less intense than it was a few weeks ago when they had gone and changed a lot of this. But you can see it's got the little kind of the rocky, rolly kind of thing going on, which is actually a very authentic. Now, if I take that same, go back to my piloting options here, and I set this back to a low, let's go ahead and hit our apply button here. Press back, press resume. You'll see that chunks that we were just getting a second ago is now, it's glass. It's no issue at all. It's routine. Like, honestly, it's like flying on rails. It's very similar to what it was previously. So what is the practical impact of all this? Well, the big thing you have to keep in mind now is, like they said in the little explanations over there, is that if you crank down the particular turbulence that you're experiencing, it's going to cause some issues as far as certain challenges and stuff like that goes. Now, for me in the real world, is this turbulence really this bad? Well, to test that, we got to go somewhere else. What better way to demonstrate the impact of realistic turbulence as trying to make a landing with an aircraft in an almost 30-knot wind with a crosswind? Seems like a perfect way to actually test things out here. All right, so we're at lovely Hartford Brainerd here, and I'm just setting myself up for a landing here. This is a good old-fashioned runway 20. This is going to sound funny, but to me, the right runway for Brainerd is runway 2. It's one of those things where if you fly out of the same airport for many enough years as the same kind of stuff, and you take off the same airport runway a lot, you tend to kind of just sort of associate the correct number with the correct things. Like for me, Bradley up that way is going to be runway 6, and even though it's supposed to be runway 24, but you get my feels. All right, so let's go ahead and land. Keep in mind we did not adjust those wind settings. This is completely as it was before. This is with that realistic wind setting. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to pause, and I'm going to let you see what it looks like on the low wind setting again, so you can just see how different that looks at this low altitude. So let's go ahead and re-unpause there. Look at the difference. Day and night. Day and night. Wow. I'm going to crank that back up to hard there. Pop, pop. Go ahead and press that button there. Press that button there. Press resume. Oh, yeah. There it is. That's what we're asking for today. Woohoo. I've flown in turbulence like this in the real world, and I've had people wanting to get out before we actually got back to the ground. It's just kind of part of the fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and press my left pedal forward. I'm going to go press my right aileron to the right, and I'm going to leave the flaps out. And if I attempt to put flaps down, I will never be able to keep this aircraft in control. It's just going to be all over the place. All right, there we go. Oh, yeah, this is real turbulence. Oh, yeah, that's wind shear right there. That's good stuff. Keep in mind, I'm keeping my airspeed up nice and high here. One of the tricks to landing in bad weather like this is all you do is you come in just a little tiny bit faster than you think you need to, and I use less flaps than you normally use. Obviously, for this aircraft, we like to use flaps because it allows you to keep... Whoa! Did you see that instant stall response by my left hand there? All right, let's go ahead and drop a notch of flaps now. And we'll drop 2. We're not going to come in lap flaps 3 here. Alrighty then. Let's go ahead and tip that down to the right. Whoa! We're going to have to earn this landing. Alright. This is going to be fun. Alright. So nobody says you have to touch the ground. Alright, there we go. Come on. Left tire first. Left tire first. Oh! Not going to win any awards for that one. Not bad, though. I'm now safely on the ground. Wow! Look at that windsock. Yeah, you don't land a 152 with a 30-knot crosswind. That's just verboten. Alright. So as you can see, turbulence now is 2 components. The first one is going to be whatever your actual wind stuff is right here. The second component is going to be when you hit the escape key, hit assistance, and then go to piloting and adjust that from there. Do I have a recommended amount? Well, it depends. If you're flying in VR, please put this to low. If you're flying just kind of normal stuff, especially heavier planes, realistic is probably fine. I probably see myself sticking to realistic and maybe sometimes dropping it to medium or low if I'm in VR. Enjoy.